Welcome to the Veterinary Project Podcast, episode 042.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project Podcast, a show focused on real conversations, aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom, and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project Podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light.
Welcome back to the Veterinary Project Podcast. You have yours truly, Dr. Jonathan Light, Dr. Michael Bugg. How's it going, buddy?
Wow, Jonathan, how many energy drinks have you had today?
None, and I've been up for hours.
Man,
that's just the way we're rolling today.
Lots of energy. Love it. I'm doing well. Little lower vibe than you, it seems like, though.
It's minute by minute, the up and downs. That's how it goes. Tell us what's happening in the apartment world. You've got some big things happening right now. You're in the grind. What's it look like?
Yeah, so that eightplex, we got possession of it. It's a train wreck. We went there, walked through all of it, and it's like, wow, it was worse than I remembered it being when we put our offer in. But that's fine. I mean, everything is fixable. We had the roofers there. I think it was Sunday, Monday, so the roof is finished. Ordered flooring or ordered paint, all that's arriving. Our contractors are starting tomorrow. So everything's going well. The big thing when you're taking on a project like this is, thinking ahead, planning ahead. You need to order the materials before you need them so that they arrive at the right time and everyone can keep working so you don't slow the project down. So no, all in all, I can't complain. It's going very well.
What we need to do, and I'm totally going sideways on this already, and we have a great episode ahead. We need to do a separate episode where you walk through one of these projects, because I think for a lot of our listeners, it'd be nice to hear, what does Mike do? Like, what does this look like in terms of real estate investing? Because you're pretty hands-on, and yet there's a hands-off approach too, which takes place after all of this renovation has occurred, which it'd be really nice to learn more about. I think it would be a great topic. Again, separate conversation. Looking forward to it. Totally putting you on the spot.
No, I mean, I'm open to it. I just want to make sure people are interested in hearing about it, right? Because I love talking about it. I don't want to bore anyone, but we can dive in.
Excellent. Well, let's jump ahead here.
Well, you don't get off that easy. Like, what's going on with you? You said you had your team meeting for Bridgeland, and that went really well.
That's correct. So we had all of our team members. There's a lot of interrelationships through past places that they've worked, but we had our first actual virtual meeting yesterday. Again, in Canada, we're still within the COVID confines. So we had our first team meeting and we got together, walked through a pretty simple agenda of where we are construction-wise, through our different pharma partners, equipment, where we are in the stages towards our July 12th opening. And really exciting. We still got a couple of hires left in our VOA category and one tech position. But we are full steam ahead, and it's a day by day in terms of dealing with construction and woes. And our group is doing an amazing job. And then behind the scenes, Candice and Tracy, our clinic administrator, and my lovely wife, and are doing all the administrative project pieces behind the scenes. There's a lot, and it is fantastic. And that's on top of growth within Mosaic. So it's a busy time right now.
So what is that, 6 weeks, give or take?
5 weeks and counting.
Wow. Yeah, it comes fast. Hey, when you're working on big projects, those final weeks and those final days, that's when you realize, like, whoa, there is still lots of stuff on the punch list that we got to get rolling on.
And you nailed it. And with regards to your renovation, you have to be planning ahead, because those pieces have to be on site. And there's certain inspections, radiation, all the rest of it that comes into it. So we're in the middle of it right now.
And I mean, currently, added curveball, I don't know if you're seeing this on your project, but COVID and then supply line disruptions. Like, for us to get flooring, and flooring is nothing. Like, there's hundreds of stores that carry flooring, but they're talking like, if you don't order soon, this one's out of stock, this one's out of stock, this one's out of stock. And it's like everything is difficult to source right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to put specific suppliers on the place, but there are multiple suppliers out of the US right now that if you didn't order it back in April in the veterinary equipment biz, you're not getting it for months.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. So we do have dog runs that won't be there for opening. I've already made my team aware of that. That's just, again, they're telling us ETA end of June. I would be surprised if it's there by opening day. That's just a measure. And we had to make some calls on maybe some equipment that we may not have chosen as our first line, but guess what? They were available. We could get it. We knew we had it in place for July 12th. We had to go with it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the way it goes. So no, I completely agree. But let's diverge. Quick tip. What do we have, Mike, today for our quick tip?
Okay. I'm gonna hit you guys with a quote. I think it comes from Abraham Lincoln. Who knows? Maybe Google's just tricking me with this one, but it fit really well kind of with the conversation we had today with Trevor. So the quote is, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. And I thought that was really appropriate in our conversation with Trevor. We get into a lot of stuff around team culture and how can we build that. And the tendency, at least for me, is I'm too busy to take a break and to stop and focus on this. I have to keep going and getting the to-do list done. And really, when you step back and look at it, stepping back to focus on these key tasks, so to sharpen the axe figuratively, will accelerate you in the long run. So that's today's quick tip is dedicate some time to sharpening the axe.
Excellent quote. Love your quick tip. Let's get on with it. So our guest today, Trevor Throness, the CEO and senior instructor at Getting People Right. He is the author of Power of People Skills and a veteran coach specializing in working with growing businesses from 2 million to 2 billion in sales. He's helped hundreds of entrepreneurs, organizations, and business families across North America fix people problems, enhance communication, attract top talent, and build exceptional cultures. He has been featured in Forbes, Inc., New York Post, among other major publications, and him and his wife, Jennifer, live in the beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. As per the bio, we get into all things people skills today. This is a great conversation. Please listen and enjoy. Without further ado, Trevor Throness. Trevor, thank you very much for joining us on the Veterinary Project podcast today. I'm really excited to have you on here. We've known each other for a number of years, I believe since 2015, upon my recollection earlier this year or this week and set up for this discussion. You've helped me both personally as well as within the organization that I was previously with.
Jonathan, I've given you the best years of my life.
Oh, look at that. They're all behind us already, it sounds like then.
Right.
This is the first opportunity that you've had the chance to speak with Mike, and really looking forward to the conversation. Trevor, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you find yourself in 2021, both from a COVID perspective, organizationally, and what you do to help support organizations and businesses.
Thanks, Jonathan and Mike. So for about 20 years, I've worked with organizations and helping them figure out everything. When I started, like maybe many consultants, I really didn't know what I was doing. I knew maybe just a tiny bit more than anyone else. And I found that people needed a place to talk and stuff. And along the way, I picked up certifications and all those sorts of things. What I do today is I help companies figure out issues of growth. So I work in the area of people, figuring out how do you get people in right seats, getting your strategy nailed, figuring out what to measure, because what gets measured gets done, and then learning how to communicate better with everyone around you. But what I learned, guys, is that if you don't have the people part right, none of the rest works. If you don't have right people in right seats, it blows the strategy. A good hire is worth a good strategy 10 times over every time. And, it doesn't matter. The cash is wasted. You can't align the team around the wrong people doing the wrong thing. So I start first with people. And then we move to other things, but it's laying a foundation for solid, healthy growth within your clinic.
Excellent. I want to bring up a quote here from your book, which we're definitely going to dive into some pieces.
Oh no.
Get right into this. If a business person goes home frustrated, if they talk with their significant other about it, if they lay awake at night stewing about it, inevitably the problem is some person at work, a colleague, a subordinate, or a boss. When I read that, and I read that again recently, I went, wow, could not hit it any better on the head. We're in veterinary medicine. You work with many, many different industries, but you've also worked intimately in the veterinary industry. Is there any difference in this quote compared to any other industry? Because I sometimes feel that in veterinary medicine, we're special. We pretend we're special. We're different. It's only relevant to veterinary medicine. Trevor, I'd love your perspective.
Well, we're all people. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in. And I've worked in almost every legal industry and have had inquiries to work in the illegal ones, but, declined. But at the end of the day, we're all people. And, I sometimes think of us as we're sort of like porcupines trying to get warm on a winter's night. The closer we get together, the more we poke each other. So in a veterinary environment, in a clinic environment, you're working very closely together. So it's just going to make it more amplified. If you're in another industry where we're just connecting over Zoom and we're remote and all that sort of thing, you're not going to feel it as much, although it's still the same. When you're working in close quarters, rubbing elbows all day long, yeah, you're going to feel that for sure. So it's an issue in every industry and in every workplace.
So we're going to dive, I'd like to dive into a number of topics, and we're never going to have enough time today.
Sure.
You consult with a number of businesses and you have your first meeting with them. And are there themes that tend to arise right at the start? Or are there some common frustrations from either the owner or the business leaders within those companies that you have to start with?
Virtually every time I sit down with someone in a boardroom, coffee shop, in their office at a business, it almost always starts with people, frustration around people. And frustration around maybe someone that I've hired that I fear I've over promoted, frustration that I've got empty seats that I can't fill, frustration that I want to own this business and be free of it, but I can't because the people keep dragging me in. It usually starts with a people conversation. And actually, when it's not directly related to people, I find that the problems are often, that's like the dummy light blinking on the dash of the car. But if you follow that light down, you'll find that actually it's rooted in a people issue. So if it's sales are lagging, or we can't attract people, or there's internal confusion, often when you actually explore a little bit further, you'll find that that's rooted in a people issue too. It just doesn't present as that initially. So it usually starts with people, I find, and then it leads to other things.
And it goes other places.
Yeah.
So all things being equal, then related to people issues, people concerns, there's a number of avenues that you can go down to get to the root cause. What does that look like for you when you're working with different individuals, different businesses? How do you get to that root cause of the issue within the people issue? Because that's the place where I find within veterinary medicine, again, the area and industry I know best and only know, it's hard to get there. It's hard for people to admit what is that root cause. Myself, you and I have been in these discussions. It's hard to get there at times. How are people supposed to do that? And I'm asking this in terms of our listeners that might be thinking that, yeah, great, there's people issues. We know that. What do we do? Like, how do I actually figure out what are those actual people issues?
Well, I go in with the assumption that people actually know what probably needs to happen in their business. I mean, if you're working in a clinic, your clinic. I don't know veterinary business. I don't pretend to know that, but I do know that you've got a wealth of wisdom and knowledge inside your clinic, and you all know what needs to happen. What you do need to do is you need to start getting people communicating and getting people willing to admit areas of weakness and make it okay that, hey, this is something I'm good at, this is something I'm not, and start to have real discussions about how can we make this better? Because it's really not terribly complicated usually. It's not complicated what to do. It's not easy all the time, but it's not complicated in terms of what are the problems and how do we start fixing it. So I advocate, let's get everyone into a room. And as you know, Jonathan, I'm a big advocate of personality profiles. I have a disc profile on my website that your listeners can hop to and take for free at gettingpeopleright.com. And I think just, take the personality assessment and start to talk about, hey, here's areas of strength, here's areas of weakness. Let's start there.
Excellent.
Self-awareness, we have gaps in our self-awareness. Everybody does. You can drive a truck through. So let's start there and say, hey, let's be honest with each other and let's start to be able to talk about stuff. That's a good start.
So in that aspect, just to your last point, and let's talk about stuff. Let's get together. Let's walk through it in disc models and going forward. There's a lot of people that either don't know how to talk or don't want to talk because it's been built up for so long. You talk about the reality gap, and in many clinics, it's been going on for so many years or for so many different personalities that have been in place for that length of time. Where do you advocate for people to start in terms of, there's oftentimes in a small clinic, there's not the ability to facilitate a conversation with Trevor in the room.
Well, I don't want to make this a shameless plug about my stuff here.
Not where I'm trying to go either.
Yeah, but I mean, I've solved this problem because on my website, I have video content for all this stuff. So if you want to do disc, everyone can take the profile for free. I even have a free course on it where it's like, hey, just play. What is a D? Now let's talk about it. What is an I? Now let's talk about it. And it's a format that works really well. So I don't think there's the excuse anymore of I don't know how to facilitate something because I'll do it for you. And actually for free in that case.
That's excellent. Mike, any questions there? I want to jump into something completely different along. Yeah.
One quick question for me. I really like what you said, how this isn't complicated, but it's also not easy. So right. How do you get people over that hurdle or that resistance of being willing to step into maybe work that's uncomfortable and facing that self-awareness, right? Like using a disc as an example, it's not right or wrong, no matter what letter you tend to lean towards. But what if someone is feeling like, oh man, I'm not a D, so I can't be a driver in this business, and they're judging, their personality?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'm going to talk directly to leaders for a minute, because everything rises and falls on leadership, and so much is dependent on the leader. A little while ago, Gallup, the surveying organization that we all know, came out with a statement, and they said, this is our signal greatest finding in our 85-year history. So really something to think about and pay attention to. And they were doing a study on employee engagement, and they looked at, I think it was about 300,000 business units. And they found that engagement was very low across industries. This is nothing new to us. We all know this to be true. But they found that engagement spiked in certain business units, like to very high levels, and they didn't know why. And there would be like a 50% swing in this business unit. And it's like, what's going on? Because it's the same industry and one is working and one isn't. So what is it? So they explored it. And here's what they found. They said it's so much is dependent on the leader and the middle leaders, like who have a person reporting to them, or one or two or three, having small teams. And it's their ability to engage those people. It's their ability to inspire those people, to know them. And so I think if you're a leader of anyone in the clinic, it first starts with you saying, do you buy it? And are you willing to model transparency? One of our mutual friends, Jonathan Darrell from VCA, is so good at this. He goes first. So when we do DISC, he goes first and says, hey, this is what I'm great at. This is what I'm bad at. It's okay. We all have them. I'm modeling it and making it okay. Now you go next. And now it's okay for everyone.
Then there's a comfort level for sharing.
Yeah, so the leader's got to start, right? So if the leader starts and leads the way, the people are going to follow. So it starts with you as a leader saying, hey, I'm going to step up here and be transparent, be honest, and you'll find that it'll trickle down. Here's the biggest principle of human motivation. People follow the behaviors set by their leaders. So it doesn't matter what's written on the walls. It matters what happens in the halls. And if you model these behaviors, people will follow them. So it starts with you.
Love that.
It was a mouthful.
Yes, but so impactful and so important. I want to change direction a little bit because I know we're going to run out of time today. Culture. There is a really big push and an important push for our veterinary students, our veterinarians, technologists, team members that want to be within a positive culture. That's what they're looking for when they're looking to move or they're looking to be hired on. Tell us what, in your view, makes a great culture, a positive work environment from your perspective.
Yeah, and so they should, by the way. I was talking with a veterinarian a little while ago looking to make a move, and her questions were all about culture, as they should be. That's what mine would be too. What's this workplace? I mean, we're all going to make reasonable money wherever we go, but it's how do I want to spend my life? Because working with people that are difficult and painful, life's too short for that. So I wrote a book about this, again, another shameless plug, called The Power of People Skills, because as I sat down with people, I found that this was the question everyone had. So I thought, I'm going to make a white paper so I save us all some time, and then it turned into a book. But in the book, I just say, look, let's assess our people based on their attitude and based on the productivity they have in their current role. And then let's have discussions. So some people have amazing attitudes and they're very productive. Well, we want to retain those people. Some people have pretty good attitudes and they're not as productive as they could be. We want to develop those people. Some people have awful attitudes and they're terribly unproductive, and we need to probably move those people on somewhere where they can be a fit. And then the tough ones are the people who are productive but have terrible attitudes. And those people we need to confront, warn, coach, quarantine, but the idea is, hey, let's build a strategy for every single person on the team so we can develop them into stars. I think that's a great place to start.
Sure is. And again, not shameless plugging for your book or for your website, etc. Prior to this going into video content, we've gone through the exercises and facilitations around star charting, which is what you're describing, and the movement of. There are many individuals in the clinic, in my experience, that don't want to make those hard decisions or don't want to confront when there has been an individual that's been in that low attitude end for a long time.
Yes.
Every clinic, there's usually one or two of them, is what I've seen in the past.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation, Trevor, for our listeners that probably have them within their clinic, as to the leaders, because I'm hoping that they're listening, what they do about that?
Yeah. Okay. So first, if you've got 10 people, 2 are going to be superstars, 7 are going to be decent folks, and 1 is going to be an active problem, typically. You know, and if you've got 100 people, same ratios, roughly. So this comes from a misunderstanding. The misunderstanding is it's not nice to talk to people who are underperforming or who are problematic. And here's just a simple thing that I think will really change things for you and be helpful. When you talk with someone who is a challenge person on your team, you don't come with anger or frustration. You don't say like, this is enough, I'm done with this, this has to change. You don't approach it that way. You approach from a position of empathy. So very big difference when you say, you know what, so-and-so, I just want to talk with you because I feel concerned, right? Okay, if you feel concerned about me, how am I going to be mad at you? I feel concerned. Sometimes it feels like it's hard for you to be here during the days. Sometimes it feels to me like maybe you don't seem terribly engaged to me. And I just feel concerned because it seems like a roadblock to me. I want you to be happy. That's what I see. Tell me what your side is. I'd like to hear things from your perspective. Because when we believe that someone is on our team and for us, you have a much better outcome. Whenever I have those conversations, which I do frequently, I always start by saying, look, I want to help you win. That's the only reason I'm here. If you lose, I lose. So let's win together. But I do feel concerned.
Excellent. How do you help leaders, and I'm completely using myself and a weakness in this area, who are Ds and drivers from the DISC model, that sometimes either have a preconceived notion of what should be happening, the results before that person even talks, or active listening skills might not be as active as they should be. How do you coach individuals there? Because there's drivers like that. And again, most of the clinics I've been a part of, seen myself included.
Yeah. Well, and most of the clinics, you're going to have a driver who's pushing things, and you're going to have a lot of S's, supportives, who are conflict averse, kind, wonderful, empathetic people who don't want to get into a conflict and don't want to offend anybody. So you've got those two, and it can be oil and water. That's the magic of DISC, okay? Because DISC says nobody's broken. Everybody came out of the factory just how they should be. And here's areas of strength and here's areas of challenge. So let's just own them. You know, so for a Jonathan who's a high D in a team setting might say, hey, you know what, here's my strengths. I'm decisive, I'm goal-oriented, I accomplish a lot. Here's my weaknesses. Sometimes maybe I can be insensitive to other people. Sometimes I say things that feel too blunt. So I just need to own that. And then that makes it okay for a supportive person to say, you know, hey, I'm empathetic, kind. I love working with animals. I love people on the team. But sometimes I avoid conflict because I just don't want to get into a conflict. I hate it. And we start to have that discussion and say, that's okay. There's nobody broken. Everybody is who they should be. And let's just talk about who we are and the strengths that we bring. And my DISC profile really focuses on your strengths. So I say, what's your unique genius? Like yours, Jonathan, would probably be, I drive towards results. Mm-hmm. And others might be, I give caring, or I care for animals in the practice, and I love animals. Like, that's great. Whatever your strength is, let's work there. But it's all about talking about it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Mike, anything on that?
Nothing too deep. I like the idea of like focusing on your strengths and playing to your strengths. I do feel in the veterinary industry specifically, we maybe sometimes focus on our weaknesses a little too much and let them bother us rather than looking at all the great skills we do have.
Yeah. My watchword is work on your area of weakness, not in your area of weakness. So, you know,
hey, can you define that further for us? Sorry, I cut you off completely. Can you define that further for us? Working on versus working in?
Yeah. Like, don't spend all day doing what you're bad at doing. Work on things that you're not great at, but find what you're great at doing and do that with most of your day. And then work on your areas of weakness. Like, hey, I need to work on, you know, my conflict management stuff, but you know what? Most of my day is spent working with animals, and I love that. So good. Do that.
That concept of getting the person on the right side of the bus in the right seat on the bus.
Yeah. You know, many of you, if you're a clinic leader, you've probably heard of Good to Great by Jim Collins. And right, that's his first thing from Good to Great is get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus, get the right people in the right seats. And what I do is I tell you, but how do you actually do that? Like, easy to say, but what's the process you go through to make that happen? That's what I help with in that stage one, that people stage.
Excellent. With COVID and the stress of it in veterinary medicine, our business as a general rule has gone up double digits. If you're looking at AVMA, CVMA results, we're right in the crunch. Again, opinion specific, and I'm on the positive bias to a veterinary shortage, both in the veterinarians and the veterinary technologists. Yeah. We are in a high stress time. Yes. Where do you see clinics best suited to deal with the stress of day to day when it comes to their people in order to prevent burnout and also still to move towards career enjoyment and career improvement or moving towards goals?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like that's been forgotten about in the last 2 years, especially with COVID and everything that's changed. And I'm sad about that right now.
Yeah. And you know, there are industries that are very stressful all the time. And one thing that I find is one of the greatest stress relievers or things that help us deal with stress are the team that you have around you. Because there are times, like I think veterinarians right now are heroes. Like, you're doing work that's necessary. It's really hard. You're pouring in lots of extra time, but it points again to culture more and more. Because if you have people around you that you feel like, wow, they get it. We're all supporting each other through this time. It's a hard time. It's probably not going to be like this forever. You know, it never is. But I've got people that I can talk with and laugh about it with, and we can decompress a little bit. Like, to me, I think it's the strong cultures that help you get through these times. Mm-hmm. So culture is everything. And the other thing is, there's a limited number of people looking for work. Where do you think they go? They go to the best culture. Best culture wins. The better your culture, the easier it is to find people, the more of the great people you're going to attract. The worse your culture is, you're going to repel those people. So the good get better and better, and the weaker get weaker and weaker. So it's really worth your time focusing on
that culture.
Yeah.
How do those that have great culture advertise out into the workspace that they have great culture?
Well, okay, so I believe that the best people are not recruited, the best people are attracted. So here's how I find it works in the real world. So let's say you've got a vet tech and they meet with some other people from their industry, wherever, you know, socially or at a show or something like that. And that person says, oh, my place is so awful. And the other person says, really? We actually have a pretty great place. Like we've got mentorship and we're doing disc and we're doing all those things. And that other person says, are they taking applications? Are they looking for people? That's how it actually works on the ground, is word gets around even more than like posting your LinkedIn post. We're, amazing and all this. Like, again, what happens in the halls matters more than what's written on the walls.
Nice. So
I think word starts to spread, just naturally when you've got a happy culture. People want to work there and apply. Like I work with a company in the real estate space, and this is what they found. People, in my area of Vancouver, forget finding any real estate professional. Like the market is on fire, and yet they have the best people putting in their resumes because they want to work for them, because word on the street is, wow, there's mentorship. We're not just a Shark Tank, eat you alive Shark Tank, and there's warmth and camaraderie. I want to be there.
Excellent.
So
and then it just
work on your
builds
culture
on itself.
Yes. They get more of the best, and then more of the better want to come to them. It's just, it's a snowball.
In terms of people, the power of skills, and pontificating on the future post-COVID, any changes that you see happening as we've gone more virtual?
Yeah, I think that a certain percentage of every business is going to change for the better. I think we're open to virtual solutions like we never were before. It's going to save us commuting time. There are those of us who are going to be able to have a hybrid situation where we do some of our work from home possibly, and not have to come in all the time. I think there will be, it depends on your industry, of course, but yeah, I do think that there will be permanent changes that come out of it for sure.
Do you see any negative aspects of that when it relates then to people and communication, or do you see it as a positive? Because there's some nice balanced views out, or not balanced, excuse me. There's different perspectives out there.
Yeah, totally. I do all I do is virtual meetings. They're very efficient,
yes,
but you miss the water cooler talk and the chit chat, and it's better to be in person. But, let's say, okay, so we have an in-person and then we have 3 virtuals and then we have another in person. I think there will be more models like that because it does work pretty well. It's not what we want to do exclusively, but we've learned that this can work, or like telemedicine in the veterinary industry, stuff like that, I think will be a thing.
That's excellent. And I completely agree. And I didn't even tell them to say that either.
It just makes sense though, right? Consumers have figured out, why do I have to get in my car and make an appointment, take time off work and all that stuff? Like, let's do what we can virtually.
That's it. And it's being done in the human space, and it's starting to be done. Again, we're not a wormhole we're going into. Excellent. Mike, any comments in here? We're going to have to move to the impact round already. Again, like I said, this time is,
Well, I do. And hopefully it doesn't take us too deep on a tangent, but I'd be curious to know, just tactically, chatting about culture, if a clinic wants to move their culture from a 4 to a 6, or a 6 to an 8, an 8 to a 10, what are some like tactical pieces of advice you could offer, that they can start that process? I know it's complex, but some of the biggest takeaways that they could maybe try implement.
Okay. Well, 2 practical things that I would suggest. The first one costs $0. Go to gettingpeopleright.com. That's my website. Have everyone in your clinic take the free DISC assessment that comes with like a 12-page download, and then get them, sit them in a room after hours, get some food, and play the simple parts of the discourse that say, hey, here's what a D is. And that's free too. I'll describe what a D is, then press pause, then say, who in the room is a D? What strengths do you identify with? What weaknesses do you identify with? Now let's press play again, who's an I, and go through SC. So that's the first one. The second one that I would suggest that, Jonathan, you've gone through is building a one-page strategic plan together. And that's a course I also have on gettingpeopleright.com. Very simple course. You just get in there and it helps you figure out, what is our culture going to be and what are our goals in 5 years and in 1 year, all on a single page, so that everyone is sort of united around, here's where we're going. Like you went through that process, Jonathan. Can you describe it?
Yeah, no, we just went through it in Mosaic. That would be now we're June 1st, 5 months ago. And it just took a whole bunch of different perspectives. And we had no choice but to narrow down to the essence of our company. What is what we stand by? What is what our promises are? What are our deliveries? And then moving through our SWOT analysis, our 1-year goals, 5-year goals, and then putting them into quarterly rocks towards that possibility for goal achievement, knowing that there's going to be ups and downs along the way. You cannot ask for a better way, in my standpoint, and this is number 2 or number 3 time I've gone through this in this 1-page process of bringing everybody together, because there's different perspectives, but at the end of the day, we spend 10 hours in virtual on this, 5 hours each day. Best use of time we could have done.
Wow. Yeah. And it's about communication, right? It's about everyone knowing, here's where we're going. Okay. Here's what we stand for, those sorts of things. So it's really simple and really, really cheap.
That's for that time. And I said 10 hours. I should have said 5 hours total, not 10 hours total. Hey,
yeah. And sorry, I got one more follow-up question on a disc. Is it pretty like set in stone, or how often should you revisit it? Because like, will your personality change and shift? Say if you redo a disc in 5 years, like how often should this be redone and re-looked at?
Well, so the disc is not a scientifically, validated tool. It's a conversation tool. So I always say disc is not the end of the conversation. It's the beginning of a conversation. So fill it out and let's talk about, hey, is it accurate for me? If not, what is true? What isn't true? So it's just a way to talk about where am I strong and what are areas of challenge. So I say, do it as many times as you want. Have someone else do it on your behalf. Like even in a marriage, or if you're with somebody, have your partner write the disc for you. Have someone in your clinic write the disc for you and say, how do you come across to me? Like there's endless uses of it. And by the way, you can do it for free as many times as you want. So I say, yeah, do it, because it's just about having a conversation. It's not about labeling you or anything like that.
That's great. And that's where, frankly, as a leader within an organization, I've seen it go wrong, is where we start labeling individuals or saying, hey, potentially this person can't do that, or they're not geared towards this based on that personality assessment. And we've had some great debate on that within our own organization, previous work I've done. And it's that, just like you said, it's the start of the conversation, not the end.
Yeah. A better way to even say it is, what gives you energy at the end of the day? Like, what did you do that day when you went home and you felt on fire versus what did you do that day that you came home and you felt wiped? That's a clue as to, there's lots, it's a wisdom tool. It's not a science tool. It's a wisdom tool.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Trevor. We're not done yet. We're now going to move into the impact round.
Oh, wow.
But with that, these are small, short questions of which you can answer any way you'd like. They are vet-centric, or veterinary team-centric. So the first question is Trevor, are you a cat or a dog person?
Well, I have a cat. I own a cat, so I guess I'd have to say cat. Mini lion,
Yes, we've been slowly losing on the cat end, so it's nice to see that ratchet back up by another guest. Excellent.
I watch our cat, and I'm amazed at how lion-like our cat is.
Mane and all.
Saying. Calico, very pretty too, by the way, like a beautiful animal.
True or false? I knew I wanted to be in a people-centric business since I was a kid.
True. Absolutely. Excellent. Get in the right stream when you're young. Young folks, get in the right stream, to start. And that stream can take you all sorts of places.
Nice. How would your friends describe what you do for a living?
Well, forget my friends, my family. It's like, what does your dad do? I don't know. He's downstairs all the time in his office. Well, I don't know how they would describe it, but I would say I help businesses in growth build a structure for growth.
Excellent. What is your favorite hobby?
I'm a guitar player.
Yeah. So for anybody not watching the videos, there is 4 guitars nicely lined up on the wall behind Trevor in his office.
I think he's got one on his lap too that he pulled out a little earlier. So 5. Yeah.
5. And when I actually have a malady called GAS, called guitar acquisition syndrome. And it's flared at times that it's been, badly enough that it's been a problem in my marriage. So when I play guitar, my world falls back into place.
And that's why there's 5 of them in the room.
Oh, there's more than that, but you can see.
What in this world, Trevor, are you most grateful for?
I'm most grateful for my faith. I'm a Christian, and faith in Christ fuels my life, and it makes me grateful and hopeful for the future. And it's the cornerstone of my life. Excellent.
Well, in final wrap up, thank you very much for joining us today, Trevor. I know you've been on a number of podcasts of guests and really appreciate your time, insight. I think this is going to make a big difference to those that are listening today. So very much appreciate it.
So great talking to you guys. Thank you. And thank you for doing this. I know this is a passion project and you're really trying to build the industry. And I think it's awesome that you're giving back. Thank you.
Thanks. Mike, any words in conclusion?
Just thank you, Trevor. I really like this. I'm definitely going to be re-listening to this one. You had lots of tidbits in there. Also, for people that are just listening and not watching the video, Trevor has one of the most amazing bookshelves I've ever seen in my life behind him. So I'm assuming you must read a ton, because I haven't seen a bookshelf like that in quite some time. So good on you.
Reading is a vice for me, not a virtue. I need to stop sometimes.
I know I'm throwing curveballs in here too. So other than your book, what are some of your favorite, like number one book, like business, personal development, wherever you want to take it?
Well, on a business side, the most practical book I think that a clinic person could read is Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. That just says, hey, here's where teams go wrong. Here's where they go right. It's simple. It's written in fable format. It's a classic. That's one that I would recommend.
Excellent. It's going on my reading list.
Everyone should read it. Like, especially if you're in a smaller clinic environment. Yes, absolutely put it on your list.
Excellent. For those, Trevor, that are going to want to know more about you, get online, possibly contact you, where can they reach you?
Just go to my website, gettingpeopleright.com. And there's tons of free resources on there under templates. Like I've got star charts on there to chart your people, coach and connect forms. I've got discs, summaries, and there's all sorts of free tools that you can download there. So, and you can get in touch with me there.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, as always, we leave the last message and the last word to you. What message would you like to leave for the veterinary community?
The message I would like to leave is best team wins. So, if you want to win, work on your culture. If you can get everyone rowing in the same direction, you're going to dominate any industry anywhere. That's what matters.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap, on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly. So be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.